Hi, I'm Blue Wallis, a music producer based in London, and today I'm going to be showing you 7 interestingly useful tips in Ableton Live which I don't think get used nearly as much as they could be, and so I'm going to be showing them so that hopefully it can benefit you. My experience, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing, but I've been using Ableton Live for the past 7 years, and so if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe, follow, and comment for more. The first tip I'm going to show you is about templates. Now, Ableton's auto startup is this default template right here. It's really useful if you're starting out just to know what you're looking at and to get into it. Typically you can press tab to get to the other arrangement view. But what's really useful about this is creating your own templates as well. So if you scroll down, you should have the templates folder at the bottom, and then you can have as many different templates here as you want. These are useful for if you wanted to go into something nice and quickly, and Ableton has some pre-made ones. So we'll have a quick look at these. So for instance, the quick start beat, we're going to open this, and now we have already a beat, a bass, a lead, and a place for some synth keys as well. So we could then hear that straight away and start going into it. And so these are really useful for getting into things. Another one is the 8-track template. So we open up this one, we can see it already has 8 tracks already open. We've got the mixer view, they've got channel strips, so we can do gain, high pass, low pass, gates, mid gains, you know, everything that you'd kind of want for an 8-channel recording session already there in view. Another thing that you would want to do is create a master one, or your one that's going to load up by default. So Ableton's is the default live set, and I've created my master one, which is what I've set as my main one. So you can see everything's here, and it opens up into arrangement view. I've got a loop already at bars 5 to 9 with some drums and some presets already loaded onto some of these tracks. So I've got some keys down here all ready to go for me, as well as a bass as well. The way that you create templates is you set up your session however you want. So maybe we wanted to have more of a bare bones. So let's say we wanted, we got MIDI track. We're going to call this MIDI 1. Let's create another track. Let's call it audio, and we'll rename it to audio 1 as well. And then all we need to do is go into file, and then we can save live set as a template if we wanted to save it as a new template, or if we wanted to save it as our default template, we can click save as default template. Both of these, whichever one we do, will show up here and allow us to then call it back when we need to. The second useful tip that I want to show you is audio and MIDI presets. This is more specifically in the lanes. So here we have blank MIDIs and blank audios, but what we can do is we can save to have presets already put onto these as well. So here we have a new audio which automatically has an EQ8, a glue compressor, and a utility. So the way that we do this is we put whatever we want onto our channel. So for instance, we'll stick with this one. I'll get rid of these just so that's easier. We've got an EQ8. Let's say that we always want to permanently just have around 100 Hertz EQ'd out on all of the audio tracks that we always put in. That way we can save some of the bass, or just make it easier to clean up our audio. And maybe we want to always have mono for whatever reason. We could have both of these set, and then we can come here and save as default audio track. It'll ask you if you want to override it. You'll say yes. And now if we create a new audio track, again, both now have those things there. If we then come in and again get rid of these things, say we take it off of mono, and I'll turn both of these off, we can then come in here, save as default audio track, sure you want to override it, And if we create a new track, again, it's now just overridden it. And you can see that first one, there's still got those. This is the same for MIDI. You can obviously save MIDI instruments here if you wanted a default MIDI instrument, but if you're adding a new MIDI, you probably don't. But you can then also add your basics again, so I'm using these same three, but you could add arpeggiators onto this to be different to your audio ones as well. So if we were to grab a MIDI effect, let's grab maybe the arpeggiator, put it here. We can now save this as a default MIDI track. We'll override it. And then if we create a new MIDI track, we'll see that the arpeggiator is now there. If we create a new track, audio track, the arpeggiator isn't there. And if we wanted to maybe remove that from the MIDI track, we can then go in, save as default MIDI track, override it. And now if we create a new MIDI track, the arpeggiator is gone. Another very simple but easy tip is the ability to save instruments as different presets. For instance, here I have 3 different electric pianos that are just the basic versions, but I've put them into slightly different instruments just so that you can show a wide variety of different sounds that you can make with just a basic one. And then you could save them in case you wanted to recall them later for a different project. They're all playing the same tune, but this is what the first one sounds. It's more of a belly type of lush sound for the electric piano. So maybe we would want this more as a pad, or maybe we'll chuck it into a large reverb and really just build some atmosphere with this. And what we could do is we could come down here and we could say, instead of saving it as electric piano basic, we can save it as electric piano and then pad version. And that will then save it so that we can then drag it back and use it in other ones. If we go to this one, I've made this one more of a guitar sound. So if we listen to this, it's more aggressive, and so we can use it in more of a maybe melodic or rhythmic section. And again, we could then save this as a different preset, and that way when we're looking for maybe different sounds or sounds what we want to use, we can use these pre-made ones already. You can also do the same thing of saving presets of things that we like to audio effects as well as MIDI effects and whatever other effects we want to. So if we take the classic reverb and drag it onto this pad that we wanted to make more luscious, we could then create a very wet version of this. So maybe let's increase the decay, increase the size, let's increase the pre-delay, and then play around with this. Now typically I wouldn't use a reverb on a track, I'd use a send, but this is just for demonstration purposes. So now we'll have more of this luscious reverb. You can hear it there. And say this is something that we wanted, we could then save this, again come in here and then maybe put this as super lush. And then we can then drag this onto maybe this more simple sound here. And then we have that reverb already there, ready to use as well. The next tip I want to show you is about keeping your session and track organized and being able to loop through it a little bit more easily. I'm going to break it down into 3 different parts: lengths, sections, and locators. The length one is very simple. You have a MIDI region that spans the whole length of your track, which means at any point you need to be able to listen to the whole track from start to finish. You can quickly click on this and click Command L and it will select the whole region of your track. You can also unselect it as well if you want to get rid of all selections. The second one is sections, similar to what you can do in other DAWs, this is a way that you can do this in Ableton, where you can create mini regions, name them, and then color them to how you would like. Here I have an opening, verse, pre-chorus, verse, pre-chorus, bridge, chorus, and end. So you can see this used in this format. You can also use this to select and loop those specific locations, and again, using the length one to go back to the whole thing if you need to. Ableton does have another feature called locations, where you can add a locator. Maybe we'll call this pre, and then we can add another one for chorus. And again, we can then loop to next section. But if you wanted more of a color to show you this, and maybe you don't want these lines coming through your whole track, this is another way of doing it. Locators are really useful as well, because you can then play from that starting point, as well as loop, as I just showed you as well. The next tip comes with mixing and mastering, and helping you to do this more effectively within Ableton. It's really crucial to know that sometimes you want to have audio changing in terms of level within a track. For instance, this serum patch here, I want to remove the sound so that it doesn't go to the delays or reverbs, so that it's cleaner for the bridges and the verse sections. You could do this by automating the master volume of the track. Simply here, click and automate it. However, that is bad practicing. It's easier to mix by controlling these up and down, using the arrow keys or dragging to the desired level. However, that means that all automation gets cut off. I find the simplest way is to use the utility tool and automate the gain volume here. That way, you can still mix in your track using the master volume, and all of your automation gets preserved. I'll quickly play some of this so you can hear what this is like. There you can hear how we could change the overall level of the track with this, but the utility still allowed for a sharp decrease in the synth right off the get-go. This next tip is a bit more advanced, and it's more about routing. Ableton is really good in the fact that it helps to do the routing for you. For instance, if we look at this drums group, we can see that we have a number of different drum instruments. All of them have different effects and are all going through this drum group. If we look here, we can see that it has, as it's in, all ins, and it is outputting to the drum group. The drum group then is mixing to the main, which is your final part of the output. This is really useful because then you can group everything in the drums, do some processing to them, and make everything nice and neat. However, you can use this for more detailed or intricate mixing that you would like to do. For instance, this kick drum is going to be doing a lot of sidechaining. And to do that, I'm currently using a sidechain compressor on several tracks, all routed to the kick. One possible way of using this routing is to have all of the tracks and bar the drums go into a final track, something like this final send, and put the sidechain compressor there. That way you could choose which ones are being sent there. The way that you would do that is by going into your group or into your regular track and selecting the output from main to whatever the final one would be. For this, it would be final send, but you could have a sidechain specific one. I'm going to demonstrate this on this bridge part of this track. As you can see, we have some form of automation on this track. We also have it on the reverb. We have this coming in and out of being on or off, just to allow for a cleaner mix. We currently have this also going to the output of the main, but having the input of Serum 2. If we put this currently as no input and go back to the Serum 2 one and see that it's going to the chords out, when we play this, we should be able to hear no effect from the final send. What I will do is I will turn this off so that the reverb isn't being affected as well. So this is what the bridge sounds like. It has some nice movement in it thanks to Serum, but we're actually going to try and improve this to create more of a rhythmic effect. First, let's re-enable the reverb so that it will turn back on. Let's go into the final send and select the input from Serum 2. You'll need to have this in mode so that it can hear it and know that it should be playing this sound, and this will go blue. And then we can also then send the Serum, instead of going to chords group, we're going to send it to final send. This will then allow this final send to use this effect, a utility with an LFO dipping the gain at a rhythmic level. You'll hear this more and understand what it's doing within the track to give it more of a rhythmic element. This is now the new bridge using the final send. What you'll notice is that the bass sound is still coming through and the final send is still coming through, and you can see that it's causing an output here. However, instead of going to the group and outputting here to then go to the main, it goes to the final send and then to the main. The reverb has the same effect and the same automation so that it can solidify it within the track. If we wanted that bass to also be part of this effect, and instead of going through this group, we could do a similar thing where we change the bass out to the final send. We don't need to change the final send because it's already going to pick this up. And so now if we play this, we can hear that that bass sound is now being affected by the final send. If we solo the bass, we'll just be hearing it through this output sound as well. This can be used in many ways and can be used in conjunction with other things. It's a little bit tricky to get your hands on, but can be quite useful for doing one-off sends or even sidechain compression. Now this next tip is grouping. It's quite a simple thing once you've gotten your head around it, but could definitely be used more by newer users of Ableton. It's possible to do this in the light version, all the way through to the suite version, and offers you many more choices in effects that you can do, as well as building your own things. The way that groups work, I'm going to demonstrate it with this little effect that we created for this final sound. If I show you what's going on here, you'll see that there is two effects, a utility and an LFO. I currently have the LFO mapping to the gain. You'll notice that it's creating a very big stutter effect on the output of the audio. This LFO is very quick. So what I wanted a way of being able to control this in a really simple way. And for that, I could have just created an automation on this rate. But if I wanted to create this as an effect that I could then use in other places, a simpler way of doing it is being able to create a macro. A macro you can show and hide through this button here. You can add more and remove them with a minimum of 1 and a maximum of a grand total 16. There's a lot that you can do. You can also map groups within groups, which can get a bit more complicated. but we'll stick with a nice simple one macro example here. All this is going to affect is the rate control of this LFO. If I show you further in, you'll see that it's now less of an effect because of this. This means when we come to do our automations, it's as simple as right-clicking this and only more automating this one effect. If we come in here, we can also see that it's just the effect rack, and we don't have to go into the LFO and then find which one we want, the frequency rate. We can keep it nice and simple with just this one thing. This is what it sounds like. So we can see that it is slowly bringing the rate of the LFO down, to which it's now going to speed up. And all we have to do is control the automation of this. What we can then do is we can click save here and rename this to whatever we want this rack to be. It's an audio rack because it's processing audio. So let's call it audio stutter. What we can do is we can look at the pre-chorus verbs as an example. Let's take the audio stutter and drag it onto this track. Without this, this is what the piano sounds like. If we now add in the effect, we should be able to hear it. We can modulate it through the macro. And use it however we want. We can also go in and then change different parameters within this group, and it will save it just for this one and won't update it on other ones. So for instance, if we maybe do a polarity inverse, if we then go on to the final send one, we'll see that the polarity inverse hasn't been updated there. It's nice and simple, but when you get into it, these can become very complex. It's good to start building your knowledge now and see how far you can take it. Feel free to copy this as a very simple way to start off, but there will be more tutorials coming soon. Thank you very much for watching today. This has been Blue Wallis. If you've liked what you've seen, please subscribe, comment, like, whatever you want to do, bookmark the page, and I'll see you in the next video.